All right, so in order to get to the WISE archive, the URSA webpage, you can go straight from the URSA webpage here. URSA has a lot of different holdings, a lot of different missions. Primarily they're infrared, some submillimeter, some optical, but WISE is one of the biggest data sets. So because it is new and popular, it's one of the things that's listed up here, but you know, in time, those will roll off, and other interesting things will be featured here. WISE will be available as one of the big data sets on the side here. And what I strongly recommend is going at it from the image archive perspective. The documentation that I was just mentioning is in here, the all-sky release information and the explanatory supplement. But let's go to the image archive for now. So the number one thing that I can say when you are doing this for yourself is don't use Microsoft Internet Explorer. It's got all sorts of problems. If you are having problems and your screen does not look like mine at this point, try a different browser. Chrome and Firefox are both free and are much, you know, they play more nicely with a lot of things, including the WISE archive here. So you can see that when you're first dropped in, you're dropped into a position search because that's the most popular thing that people do. We want the all-sky release. There are other subsets of data that you can choose if you want, and in the future, of course, as more data are released, more options will appear here, but by default, it comes up with the all-sky release as the best option. You can search by individual objects, or you can upload a list of objects. Let's just do a single object for here. So I'm going to type in M31. And you can see that what it's doing is it's actually turning my the name of the source into coordinates. And it's done this by talking to a database called NED, the NASA Extragalactic Database, also housed here at IPAC. You could also tell it, no, I'd rather you get the coordinates from Simbad. And then it'll go and get the coordinates from Simbad. Underneath the window here, it tells you what it thinks you've typed in a couple of different units so that you can be sure it's looking at exactly the position you want. If you have a particular object that you have found, say, from one of these citizen science programs where you have like the galactic coordinates, you can enter galactic coordinates. If I delete that, it gives you a hint on how to do it. So for example, this would be a galactic coordinate entry. You can also tell it, you know, I really do mean J2000, or I really do mean 1950 coordinates, or you can just type in the name and it'll go and get the coordinates for you. The next option here is search type. Obviously you want the image contains a target. One of the choices can also be that you only want images that cover your entire region that you're searching, or that, you know, if it just kisses the edge of it. This is the default. I think that's probably the best for most purposes. The image size that you're asking for here is here. By default, it's 600 arc seconds. If you change those units, trust me, because if you're saying, okay, well, I would like to have 500 arc seconds. So if it comes up in arc minutes and you put in 500 arc minutes and then you choose something else that's going to convert that number. So to pick your units first and then put in your number. You can see also that it's telling me that's too big. I'm not going to let you retrieve millions and millions of sources. So let's put in just 120 arc minutes, and we only want the most centered image containing the target. Sure. Yes, we want all 4 bands, and yes, we want the atlases, not the individual exposures. So we go and tell it, and then it comes back pretty quick. So what it's giving us here is a high-level view of the information. So over here in this side, let me wait for it to actually load all these images. There we go. Okay, so over here, I mean, whenever you're in any of these images, if you let your mouse pause for just a second, you can see that there are these little tools that show up and also these arrows that show up. The tools bring up toolboxes for manipulating the images. We'll go through that in a second. The arrows mean make it big. So I'm going to make this one big. And what this is telling me is that this is an IRAS 100 micron image. IRAS was an infrared survey mission from the 1980s. And it's this image that's in the background is 100 microns. At the zoom, it's 3.7 times zoomed, and that blue square is the tile from the WISE archive that we have retrieved, and that is our search center, that blue circle. So it's sort of giving you the wide scale view. And now over here, it's giving us 1 line per image for each one of the tiles that it's retrieved. There are 4 bands, and so there are 4 rows. There's WISE band 1, that was our target search. There's WISE band 2, that was our target search. And I don't know what's going on with WISE band 3. I suspect that what's going on is it's screwed up the color balance. So let's see if we can solve that. Nope, there it is. It just was having trouble in that really saturated part in the center. So you can, in fact, change the color stretch. You can change the color table. If you go up, I got to this by picking the tools. I can change the color table if I want into something else. I can change the stretch if I want into something else. And note that it's doing that for all of the images at the same time. So I can pull up the tools and say, oh, put on coordinate grid for all of these. And gosh, that rainbow hue is really hurting my eyes. Let's make it reverse grayscale. Okay. So it's, it's actually reasonably powerful because you are interacting with the actual FITS file here. So you can, for example, measure how far away. Let's see how far away that object is from this, from our search position. You can say, oh, look, that's 0.041 degrees. That object is that far away from this. In the new version that we're testing now, it'll actually break it down into right ascension and declination offsets. So for example, if you're actually at the telescope, it'll tell you how far offset in RA and dec you need to be, because sometimes some telescopes only talk to, when they require tweaking of the position, it needs an offset in RA and dec. And so that's why that will have that feature. Let's see what else. You can restore to the defaults and get rid of any additional stretches or overlays. You can have it overlay. Come on. You can turn off and on the overlays. I don't know where my grid went. It should be in there. Fascinating. I think we just found a bug. It will also overlay from the catalog diffraction spikes, other basically instrumental artifacts. It will overlay that information and tell you, this is not a real source. This is an artifact. You can also, all these images come back by default by north up, but you can also rotate it at whatever angle you want and then put it back by rotating that. If you want to change just one of the images, you can unlock, but at the moment, by default, it comes up with all 4 images locked. So any change you make to the color scale or whatever automatically goes to all 4 bands. You can also save the images that you're looking at to disk either as FITS files or PNG files, including all of your overlays. But the way that you actually want to download the images properly when it comes with all of the errors and everything else is you click on the row that you want. If you just want band 1, just want band 2, or you want all of them, you can click on the box on the top. Then you say prepare download, and it'll ask you, do you want all 4 bands? Yes. Do you want all of these other things? It depends. You might want the uncertainty files. Those are the errors that come with the images. You might want a list of the diffraction spikes and other artifacts. And you can tell it whether you want it no subdirectories or sorted by subdirectories. If you're packaging up a ton of files, you may want it to tell you when it's done, in which case you can put in your email address, and then it will email you when it's done. You go and tell it prepare download, and it goes and spins off to the background monitor here, where it's going to go through and package this up for us. If we decide, oh wait, that's not what I wanted, if you click the stop sign, it'll stop. You can also, oh wait, I had a typo in my email. You can change it while it's still packaging. Okay, so one really important thing about these images is that they are uncalibrated. When I move the mouse over, you see the pop-up in the upper right. That's telling me the position of the cursor. It's also telling me, when I stop, the value underneath the cursor. And you can see that value is in DN, digital numbers. It's not useful for making color magnitude diagrams or actual astrophysical analysis. What these images are really important for is looking to see whether or not there's a real source there. But how do you get the actual fluxes out? You go to the catalogs. So let me put away the tools for the moment, and then I'm going to go click on the catalogs tab here. The catalogs comes up with basically talking to, under the hood, talking to all sorts of URSA holdings. 2MASS, all these other infrared missions, all these other contributed data sets. It's really, really rich. But in the context of this demo, let's look just at the WISE catalog. It comes up by default, having configured itself to search for the same region that you have searched in the images for. And you can choose exactly what you want. You can do the All Sky Source Catalog. You can get things about known solar system objects and other subtleties of source lists. But for most purposes, you want the All Sky Source Catalog. You tell it, go do it, and it's going to think about it because there's actually quite a few sources on the sky. So it's going to go put that in the background too. So over here, there's that the image set that we asked it to package up before. If you click on download now or on the link you get in your email, it'll download it to your disk. This is not a particularly big file, so it should go pretty quick. It is working on the catalog still. Let me let it think. So in order to unpack this, you need to go to wherever it is your browser saves the information. This is not something that we at URSA can control. You control it. And I have some people have complained, well, I don't know where it put it. Well, it's your browser. You have to tell it where you want it to put files. And it puts it, in my case, in the downloads file. If you double click on it, your computer should know what to do with it. I've encountered some Windows machines that don't know what to do with it. There are lots and lots of uncompression-free software out there. So in my case, it knows exactly what to do with it. You double click on it and it's created a directory that contains a README file, which is just basic information. But then these are the level, what that stands for is level 3A. It has to do with how much processing it's gone through. That's the tile number. Don't worry about the details, but then those are all of the images that we asked for. So there's WISE 1, the image and the uncertainties, WISE 2, image and uncertainties, WISE 3, image and uncertainties, WISE 4, image and uncertainties. So now you have a FITS file and you can go proceed, load it into your whatever you use to view FITS files, whether that's DS9 or whatever else. Let's go see if the catalog has come back. It's still thinking about it. That's a big catalog. Let's go.
Yeah, but a long time ago.
Yeah. Let's ask for a smaller region. Let's ask for a cone that is only 30. Well, that's a little small. Let's do 1 arc minute. Oh, now it finished. Of course it finished. Okay. So notice that it came up all by itself. It finished downloading the catalog and has thrown the catalog into a tab. This is the tab that it first came back with. That's 1 line per image. And then there's the catalog. Now note that this must be the shorter catalog that I asked for. Let's get the bigger catalog. No, that's not what I wanted. I want show catalog. So there's the, a feature, right? If it's a really small catalog, like 21 lines, it'll load it in right away without having to go to the background monitor. And it's going to put it all on one page. This is the bigger file. 59,506 sources, which is why it took so long to package up and download. But it's only showing me the first 50 sources, which is really important. When you're manipulating these things in the way I'm about to describe, you have to keep in mind that this is not showing you the entire set of objects that are in this region, especially if you've searched on a big region. It's just showing the first 50, and that has to do with browser performance. If I had tried to have it render 59,000 sources in these images, I wouldn't be able to talk to my browser for 10 or 15 minutes, which would be a really boring movie. I'm going to make that go away for a second. There's that shorter catalog, so there's only 21 sources. So each one of those red boxes is a source that's in the catalog. And that blue circle that you can barely see underneath there is the search region that I asked for. So if I don't like that, there are some people who are colorblind, for example. You can change the color and you can make it, blue, brighter blue, for example, or a different, I don't think we can make a different shape right now. I think that's still coming. But you can change exactly what color the overlays are if you have trouble telling colors apart. So there's a darker blue circle. That's the object that or the target that we searched on. And then all those red boxes are sources in the WISE archive. And it's pretty nifty because if I click through the list, I change the row to green. And if you've got good eyes, you can see that the source that is light blue is changing in those images. So you can tell exactly which source each one of these are without having to match RA and DEC with your cursor. It works the other way too. If you click on the source, you'll get taken to the row in the catalog that corresponds to. So this is really powerful for investigating which sources are the ones you care about. In the catalog here, it tabulates a bunch of pretty straightforward things, right? Ascension and Declination, for example, uncertainties in position. And now we start getting into some more jargon, and this is the kind of thing that you'll need to, if you run into a heading that you don't understand, this is when you'll have to go to the documentation that goes with this to untangle it. But what this untangles to is W1 in magnitudes from profile fitting. And then W1 errors, sigmas, in magnitudes from profile fitting. So this is the business end of things, right? This is the magnitude. So that particular object here is 8.35 magnitudes in WISE 1, plus or minus 0.026 magnitudes. It's pretty well detected with a signal-to-noise ratio of almost 43. This has to do with uncertainties on the fit. And then here we have that same information for WISE 2. WISE 2 in magnitudes from profile fitting, so 8.3 magnitudes in WISE 2 with an uncertainty of 0.029 and a pretty good signal-to-noise. Now we get into WISE 3. Now, I don't know about you, but I would be skeptical of individual sources being pulled out of that murk in WISE 3 or WISE 4. The background, the ISM that's here, the interstellar medium that's here, is so bright at those bands, I would be really, really worried that WISE's fluxes are believable in band 3 or band 4. They might be, but I would worry. And that's what I mean by it's important to look at the images. There's its estimate of the WISE 3 magnitude and the uncertainty, and the WISE 4 magnitude and the uncertainty. So that's what the computer is saying, but you have to convince yourself whether or not you believe that it is right. And that's where the human judgment comes in. That's where doing the science comes in. It depends on exactly what you're doing, but this is the most common thing that I encounter, where, because I study young stars, I run into things with really high background regions and really difficult to measure photometry. Like that source right there, it might be there in WISE 1 and WISE 2. If I look at the blow up in the upper right, it's probably a source there. If I change the stretch, I probably could see it better. Whether or not there's really a source there at WISE 3, gosh, I don't know. I wouldn't put money on it. And sure enough, if you look, there's some of the CC flags, the quality flags. It's actually telling you something. The H and the D are telling you something about how confident the computer is that there's really a source there. So in order to get into the guts of this and figure out exactly what you want to believe, in all honesty, I don't remember all of the permutations of these quality flags off the top of my head. You're going to have to get into the documentation to untangle them. Let's see. Yeah, and then there's additional calculations from aperture photometry and other uncertainties. And it's also got 2-mass information in here too. It's already merged it to the 2-mass catalog, which is near infrared, J, H, and K. There's the J, H, and K with their errors. And it tells you how far away those sources were. I'm honestly not sure what units those are in. It's also probably worthwhile noting, especially for if you have really big catalogs, you can actually click on those columns and sort by them. So if you are interested in sorting these by RA or only finding the brightest source in the field, you can sort by those columns by clicking on them. You can also save this catalog to disk if you had that big catalog still up here, the ginormous one. When you hit save, it will save all 59,000 sources. It doesn't save just the ones that it's showing. That's really the baseline of stuff. You can do some more powerful things. You can add filters and say, look, I only want you to show me things that are viable sources according to the CC flags. You can change it so that it's, you're only showing the brightest sources, or, you can filter on that source list and have it only show you subsets of the data, which is really powerful, but let me not get into it right here. You can also make that bigger if you want to play with that particular catalog some more, if you want to play with adding filters and see what happens. I think those are that's the high level overview. Like I said, there are additional bells and whistles. You can do other kinds of searches. You can search in individual pieces of the data product. You can search by a WISE source ID. And because so much of what they do is solar system objects, you can also search by orbit. You can put in minor planet center IDs. You can tell it, I have an object that no one else knows about yet, but here's all of its orbital parameters. Go see if WISE happened to catch it. So lots of good stuff. I did promise that I would end on time and have a time for questions, and I can see that some people are already leaving, which is fine. But let me go ahead and ask if there are any questions.